Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to the Connecticut Common Sense podcast. Once again, I'm here, Jason Douglas with Selena Rifkin. We have a lot to talk about today, and we have a little bit of an abbreviated version of the show, but we have a special guest we want to introduce. His name is Todd Hecht, and he's here to talk a little bit about Ben Proto and a little bit about some of the things that have gone on around the country, and in Virgin Islands in particular, that we find disturbing, and we think people should know about it. So, Todd, welcome to the show. Good to see you here, and tell us a little bit about you. And Selena and I will step aside and let you talk a little bit. Tell me what's on your mind.
Okay, nice to meet everybody. Selena, nice to meet you. Jason, nice to meet you. And to anybody in Connecticut who's trying to make better communities and get honesty and integrity and transparency in your election system. That's what we tried to do. I'll just give you a quick synopsis of how we got involved in this. I guess it's 10, 11 years ago. We've been involved in community service in our church, been on boards and all kinds of different stuff. And we, some people reached out to us because they had problems in the Republican Party, specifically a scam pack, which affected many states across the country. And they were running it through the Virgin Islands because of the tax breaks. And primarily there were people from Michigan. And the three main people from Michigan that were involved in that were Michael Steele, who ended up getting an MSNBC show, a guy named Saul Anousis, who is now in Washington, D.C., and another guy named John Yob, another guy named Dennis Lennox, who kind of mixes around. We knew nothing about politics, pretty much. We were just trying to help out in our community and done a lot of different things to improve customer service. There were a lot of gang problems. We wanted to make sure that a lot of the young men in our community were getting involved in opportunities to better their lives, and just the general things that we're trying to figure out. Well, we were told originally by our chairman at the time that there were outside groups trying to destroy his leadership and all, the typical stuff that goes on all over the place. Wasn't too long into that process that we realized that there was a fight from Michigan to control the Virgin Islands Republican Party, because just like McDonald's has a franchise, the RNC is a franchise. And that once you have power to that, you have access to money through PACs and all kinds of different things. So they ran a scam pack. If you look into what those scam packs were targeting people like Mia Love in Utah. Ironically, they targeted Black conservatives, James Hurd, some other conservative candidates across the country. And they basically, from what we could see, were just using it to make money for themselves and their organizations. And we got involved thinking, we want to run candidates and have a party separate than the Democrat Party, which controls everything in the Virgin Islands. So we got involved, and for a long time we tried to work with our chairman to get him to do the right thing and get the Republican Party back in order so that we could run candidates against the Democrats. And this went on for a while. We tried really hard to work with them. And I would suggest anybody in Connecticut not to try and be a bomb thrower. I think probably my earlier times, I think I got in a situation where I was confrontational with a lot of stuff. I think you have to be, because you just have to get truth and transparency. But when we figured out that Saul Anousis and Dennis Lennox and John Cobb and all these people from Michigan that wanted control of the Republican Party in the Virgin Islands, they are only interested. People are only interested every 4 years because they want to go to the convention. We never were interested in that. We've always been interested in the Virgin Islands community, trying to get people most likely like you guys are. So we got involved at that point. Then we just got to the point where we realized that we weren't going to have a party. We started meeting with people around the islands. I travel between St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix all the time, so I know a lot of people on all the islands. And we ended up, we realized that we were going to have to work with other people to make things work. And we just tried continuously to make sure that we were, taking care of our community. So I just want to concise this best I can so that I'm not here a long time with you guys and wasting your time. But just,
Take your time.
yeah. So what ended up happening was we went to the RNC. I wrote letters to the RNC with some help, explaining what was going on, trying to learn out how things work, because basically you're fighting for control of the franchise. And I use the example of McDonald's because this is business and there's big business people. Everybody wants something. Everybody's looking for something. And what they're looking for is often not what we're looking for in our communities, which is to run good candidates, transparent candidates, and people that are going to make changes in our community for the better of the community. And for the Virgin Islands, we now have, we started and we were successful. We got control of the party. My wife, who's not like me at all, we're, opposites attract. My wife is very amenable to people. She gets along with people. So she ended up running. We tried to get the person who would be next in line and be honorable and let her run for national committee woman. And the national committee man had already broken ranks with the chairman, and he was going to work with us to try and get local people involved. We got, so we just put a whole new slate together. And our slate was chief of police, pastors, deacons, elders, honorable people throughout the community who were going to be on our state committee. And after a while, we did get the attention of the RNC. They called an election. At the last minute, Canagata pulled out of that, or the guy that was the chairman. A lot of shenanigans there, but it was all being run, not from the Virgin Islands. Everything's being run from Michigan. I don't know what your guys' situation is. And all for the fight to control the RNC name and all that stuff so that they can run these PACs and make money. And it didn't seem to be interested in anything that we had going on. And we only want to get candidates and, look credible. So we ran election. My wife won as national committee woman. I was on the state committee. I got elected as the treasurer. We put a group of those people together, and it was what happens is in our situation, all our local people, because we're over 80% Black, that's what our state committee looked like. And we were new to this. And I think as you do anything, try not to be a flamethrower or destroy what's there, because a lot of people are just making decisions based on improving themselves. And then, like one guy said who was on the opposing side when I was first working with him, when we first got on, I could buy a senator in Christiansted for a $200 meal in Christiansted. And their goals were not what our goals are. And I think you're going to find this everywhere. So, they want to have business. They want to get approved for different things that they're doing. So we got in, and then I started going with my wife to the RNC meetings, and I got to meet a lot of people at these meetings. One of the first people I met actually was Ben. And you tend to
Ben
think
Proto.
that these people, yeah.
Yeah.
I just went as a state committee member. My wife went to the meeting. We were involved in stuff, but we were told we weren't allowed to open a bank account. Basically they used us to get in who's in now. And we didn't realize that at the time. And there's a lot of people at a national level now. You should realize, I think that the people that are in the RNC and the leadership right now are the people that we connected with. So all the good people at the RNC ended up, and my wife would go and campaign with them. She's very good at it. Michael Watley, she went and campaigned for him in North Carolina, and he won his chairmanship again. Casey Crosby, we campaigned for her to be treasurer, which she won, and now she's the co-chair of the RNC. These are all, I still feel, are very decent people that, work through the system, and they want to know that proper people are elected and you're being represented properly. So once we got to that position, we finally, because of pressure, were able to open a bank account. The RNC controlled everything because, we checked with them and we trusted the legal counsel, all that stuff. We just tried to do things right. So anyway, we did that. We got that all set up, and they only allowed for a 2-year term. That was the agreement that was made, and then we would run again. Well, when the election process came up for that, there were some very nefarious people that we thought were good guys that brought in a group called fairvote.org. And it was our opinion, and I say our, the majority of the state committee, that this was not a legit operation, and that all you have to do is go to their website and see and look at them. The treasurer for Fairvote is the treasurer for Open Societies, George Soros. A lot of other people were associated with the Bill and Melinda Gates Society. Saul Anusis, who I mentioned from Michigan, he was running for chair at the same time Michael Steele was running for chair of for the RNC, and he became the chairman of the RNC. And if you look at the companies and their PACs, it seems as though they were all just doing all this stuff using the Virgin Islands to run these PACs. And John Canegata was the chair. Yeah. So any rate, though, what happened was to get rid of us because we were just trying to represent the people. We were trying to represent our constituents and the voters. So when we saw this fair vote thing and our chairman that was elected with us, which we ran with, his name is Gordon Ackley. Gordon Ackley very quickly sort of sided with these same type of people that are running, I don't want to say scam PACs, but it was pretty obvious that we weren't going to be in control. Somebody else was, and things were going on. And that's how it works. You get these endorsements and you get money based on working with the people who are in charge. And you don't know who's good and who's bad. And so what I would just tell people from any state is just be cautious, but be understanding that, the reason we have all this crazy stuff going on with Democrats is because there's no one guarding the principles of the party. There's no one, again, going back to that McDonald's things, the RNC's name and reputation is only as good as the people that, run it. And again, there's a lot of good people there. I mean, the other side that we're up against is far worse. But so at any rate, we did this. We were then encouraged by somebody, my wife was, to run in this thing. And we had become so discouraged with the process as a whole and how dirty it was. We didn't really even run a campaign for the February 8th, 2024 caucus. And the state committee voted against it. The state committee also voted to remove the chairman who was working with the same Michigan people to control the party. So we had, it was in June sometime about 2 years ago, and it's recorded. Everybody's rights were violated. We called in the meeting, it was done properly, that we called, they wanted to change the rules. And how the rules were going to be changed for the Virgin Islands Republican Party was to take all the power away from the state committee, the national committee woman, and the national committee man, and give all the power to the chairman, who was about to do the same thing that the previous chairman was doing, which was work with Michigan PACs. And I'll never forget, I got a text at one point from this guy saying that of anybody I've ever been in the foxhole with, you're by far the worst. And as soon as I got that text, I was like so thankful to get that text, because I took that as a badge of honor, because I didn't want any relationship with people that do this kind of business at all. So basically for us, that they didn't know, we called point of order, basically we did not approve the rules. We didn't approve. So what they did, and this is our belief, they set up the caucus with Michael Steele being live on MSNBC. The whole thing was going to be funded by Fair Vote. We weren't going to have to pay anything, and we were told by our chairman that it was a $300,000 or $400,000 investment from Fair Vote to run our elections in the Virgin Islands and the caucus. So the Virgin Islands does not vote for the president, but within the RNC, we vote for the candidate for president in the primary. And we can hold a private caucus, which we wanted to do, but we wanted it to be fair. Well, it was obvious to us that they were trying to subvert Trump, and they were trying to use this as an earlier time. And Michael Steele on MSNBC live from the Virgin Islands, thinking that he wouldn't get voted for, and they would come out and say Trump lost the Virgin Islands. And what happened in that process is we lost all our delegates. So the RNC penalized us. So then the state committee came together at that point, and we had a vote to remove our chairman, which was legit. We removed him, and looking back, the people that we confided in to help us get a parliamentarian stuff, they wanted us out because they didn't want grassroots people in there. That's my opinion looking back. So couple things. So now at this process, we've had a organization affiliated, and the people that are on the board of this organization are also on the boards of Open Societies, Bill and Melinda Gates Society. They're all progressives. They're all, why is this, and why are they doing this for free? This guy, Solonousis, came down to the Marriott, which is one of the nicest hotels, with just a whole slew of people, and took everybody out to dinner. John Yob used his plane to fly people back and forth between the islands. They campaigned out there. They said that the other candidate who ran for National Committee woman against my wife, she would not go up against the previous people. Because this is what happens. You end up getting people who just want to work with whatever the status quo is, so they can go to the convention, they can hang out with whoever. And so, long story short, we were violated. All of our state committee had pretty much said, forget about it. And the big difference is this. We spend our own money, our own time, and our own energy to work for the voters, and we're up against this big machine that's making millions of dollars. And you can go look at their PACs and see what they are. And I don't know if you guys are up against the same thing in Connecticut or not, but so that's how they had. I mean, you go to an organization like Fair Vote, and did they spend that kind of money? And they had their whole caucus, and a lot of the things that happened we could have come out publicly with. I was contacted by many news organizations that we didn't want to work with because we knew they were going to use it against Trump. We got Trump. I personally got Trump onto all the media stuff from behind the scenes, but our people at this point did not want to participate in the caucus at all. None of our people came out to vote for us. None of our people wanted anything to do with people that weren't from the Virgin Islands. So what ended up happening was Ben ended up being on the contest committee, and we were communicating with the contest committee. Our most valuable people were in bad situations as well, like our secretary, for example, who had all the information, everything. Her husband was in the final stages of cancer, so she wasn't able to come to any of the meetings. She was literally by his side in hospice through this time. But we spoke with people. We told them what was up. And there was a vote. We gave them all the information, and we were told that the vote was 11-0, that they were not going to accept the new state committee, which consisted of, you could just go to their social media and see, attacking Trump. Their biggest concerns were they wanted abortion in the Virgin Islands. They wanted guns. And I say that because one in particular person is still on the state committee. First, as soon as my wife was elected, she's from New York City, San Francisco, whatever. Um, that was their our state committee basically to this day still has a bunch of um, people that really aren't from the Virgin Islands who don't have any interest in stuff. Their
The
only
people,
interest, yeah,
helping the
is to make
people.
sure, yeah, they make sure that the scam packs are running. And I mean, not to say that the scam pack is still running, but there's not a because of the way that everybody got thrown out of the party. Let me just get to the point that might be of interest to you. So we were told that was the case, and a lot of people at this point they were done with it. You know, they basically dropped a nuclear bomb on the Virgin Islands. They had a police officer. The Virgin Islands is mostly black, so they had a white police officer standing at the caucus door, intimidating black voters from going in. And if I was to come out with this at that time, the media would have used it against Trump. And I say I because, a lot of our other people, because it's controversial stuff, they don't want to get involved in it. So the bigger thing is the party. And we shared some of the stuff. So we were told that we were going to, the RNC was going to have there be a proper vote and proper process, and that the violations of the meeting on, I think it was June 8th, 2023, were going to be dealt with. And out of the blue, we were in Milwaukee for the convention, and Ben comes up to my wife and says to her, "Hey, we just had an emergency meeting. We called, and 9 people showed up of the 11, and the vote was 5-4. You're fired." I mean, and my wife was like, "We didn't come to the convention." So basically, what they wanted was a black face to be at the convention, to be on TV. And here we are. We've spent probably $70,000-$80,000 of our own money over these years trying to get the party to a place. Never got any help. There was always some of the, and Ben was the delivery guy who was somebody that, and I've had many discussions with him about why is it that Republicans always attack Republicans? And I would say, whatever you do, I mean, there was a lot of people like that, and there's a lot of good people at the RNC, but Ben was the guy that came up and told her this, and basically, my wife was like, "Well, what are we doing here? We're not representing the people of the Virgin Islands, and I'm not going to go stand with a bunch of people that really aren't from the Virgin Islands, don't have the Virgin Islands interests at heart. Yeah, we support Trump, but I'm not going to go stand to." I mean, we have text messages. There were people from North Carolina, Oregon, um, Texas. Trying to think of the different. I might be wrong on some of the places, but they weren't even Virgin Islanders, and they came as delegates to represent the Virgin Islands. And when you look at it on TV, it's heartbreaking. And that was kind of the final straw. And then one of the people that was helping us was going out to dinner with Solanusis and hanging out with them. And behind the scenes, she probably voted for the other person anyways. But basically, the point is Ben was the guy basically saying, yeah, we know that it's a bunch of white people that really aren't. And this isn't about white and black. It's about local grassroots. And because local grassroots in a community that's over 80% black, you'd think you'd have maybe one black person show up to the RNC. No. And then, so what they've done now is they've hired, I've been told, the same person that used to work with us, who's a Democrat, who's now their executive director. And nobody in the Virgin Islands goes to any of the stuff. There's the Republican Party's been completely nuked. And Ben, who we thought was an ally, basically was the one that came and delivered to us that, you're not.
Well, they
We
basically came in and subverted democracy altogether and just bullied their way into a room and made up a vote and then just kicked you out, essentially.
Yeah,
You know?
and for us, I mean, I'll never vote again in my life. I mean, I'm totally disillusioned, and that's how the majority of the people. I mean, that's how I feel at this point. I mean, it just is. You're not represented by. We're a constitutional republic, so I get it. You elect somebody who has the authority to represent you. But what they've done now is, because the RNC accepted the meeting that we had, that didn't even allow one black person to vote. And if you watch it, it's unbelievable. I have video. We're probably going to make a documentary exposing it at some point, but I think we have to be careful about damaging the brand of the RNC, and we have to be careful about destroying Republicans. I think we have to be careful, to go in and completely just be angry and disillusioned is not going to help. I'm not somebody that could ever run for public office. I'm passionate about stuff, probably too passionate. My wife would speak and I would talk over her because I couldn't, I'm so passionate that,
I have that problem sometimes too. I'm
she's the
Italian.
elected. Yeah, well, she's the elected representative, and here I am so passionate about it. And if you know my wife, she's just a lovely, gentle, awesome person. And she's, she genuinely cares about people in our community. And she was totally railroaded by, I feel Ben disrespected her completely. I mean, at that moment, she was crushed, and she left at that point and went over to legal counsel and asked them. And at that point, I was just.
Oh, it's interesting
Honey,
what side is Ben
yeah.
on, really, is what we're at with what is this here, and what does that mean?
Ben's like most people. Ben's on the side of whatever. So a lot of people think there's a lot of corruption, and there is in the PACs, I think, but mostly what you'll see is it's the path of least resistance. And I think we need to be really careful about attacking Republicans and calling Republicans names, because you might need some of those people in the future to help you build your party back up.
What about Democrats? We hear a lot of it. I don't know if you've experienced it down there, but it looks like you have somewhat. We have some instances where, Democrats have literally gone and pretended to be Republicans and come in.
That's exactly what's happened in. I mean,
right. So it's kind of hard to.
So the thing I didn't tell you is these same people organized with the local media to refer. Didn't even said my wife wasn't the national committee woman. Wouldn't allow us to come to Trump events. So you go to these events, and she couldn't even go to the events. And they used so when people come and they support Trump, and then they would organize and bring, serious candidates. And the guy they have as national committee man, you wouldn't believe the stuff that he has on his social media. He hates Trump.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing is I have in one party states, I have recordings, I have videos. I'm in the film business. When the time is right, there really needs to be a documentary made to expose what goes on, but it needs to be done in a way that doesn't damage the good people, because I think there's probably more good people at the RNC than there may have ever been. And that's why I'm so disappointed in Ben that what they did to my wife, the only black woman in the entire RNC, and they didn't just crush her, they nuked her.
Yeah.
They nuked her. And they knew what they were doing. All of them knew what they were doing, because and I mean, when there was a call when, they had like a hearing, and it was just so grotesque and so dishonest. And you don't have any support. And the reason I think we would have had more support had our base not been so totally humiliated for like 12, 15 years of trying to fight to get a Republican Party going.
That's why it's so good that we have a real good grassroots based population here in Connecticut that is ready to stand up, and we do have a lot of good state committee Republicans around here, but we have a lot of Ben Protos too. So
I would suggest that's something that I would just. We don't want to nuke the RNC. I get back to the brand name of the RNC. You have to do the right thing.
We want to take it over for the
we're
right
up
people.
Against, we're up against our state. Our caucus was run by a Marxist organization. I think do some research on fairvote.org. Unbelievable if the RNC would allow that. There needs to be a resolution passed about certain things like that. And that's why, I followed a lot of what went on during the process. And then you see people getting in at the Department of Justice, and you don't see action on things. I worked for Jeffrey Epstein. as a contractor. I know a lot about that. And people get so irate, oh, they didn't release this about Epstein. I think you don't nuke the entire Republican Party, because there are people in there trying to do the right thing. I mean, to me, Ben is somebody that I had long conversations with him about why is it that Republicans always attack Republicans? And here he is, comes and literally nukes my wife, and is like, why he was the delivery man for that, I don't know. And then shortly thereafter, when they had the rules committee meeting at the convention in Milwaukee, he was going around with a sign, vote yes, vote yes. How about if you're educated on the rules and you vote what your constituents want? Because we are a constitutional republic. You get elected to represent. And then when you get there, you got to vote with us.
Well, Todd, we really appreciate you coming on and telling us about this. It's something that people should know. I'm running against Ben for Republican town state chair, so I'm up against a lot, and we're trying to make a statement here. I'm serious about it. We have a lot of things we're going to do that are going to help make the Republican Party strong here in Connecticut if we can win. But it's the last minute; there's only a few days left. So you coming on here and telling what your experiences with Ben is important. So we really appreciate it. Selena, you got any questions?
No, my thought was the reason they had him deliver the lovely news is because he has a reputation as a very nice guy.
Yeah, that's probably
reputation.
Selena, I would tell you there's a lot of people just like that. And what they'll do is they send these people out to take you to dinner, hang out with you. And the only thing that in retrospect, that was all to just remove us from day one. And that's why there's no point for putting any energy in the Virgin Islands. There's no point in putting any energy into any of this, because like somebody told us from the RNC, who was a really decent person, took my wife aside and said, you're going to win some battles, but you're not going to win the war, because these people have a war chest and they stick together, and they're not interested in getting Republicans elected. I really don't think that. They're interested in keeping themselves in power.
And the point of all this is that we here in Connecticut need to learn from this, and we need to flood our Republican town committees, not with just 1 or 2 people, but with 10 or 12 people, and start taking over local Republican committees. Therefore, that movement will then lead upstairs to the state committee, and then we need Ben Proto's got to go. He's got to go, and even if he somehow go ahead.
We thought the same thing, but when you in a situation, everything's governed by the rules.
Yeah.
So in your bylaws, what do your bylaws say? Do your bylaws allow you to have any say? Because in the Virgin Islands now, everybody knows that the bylaws are basically give one person all the power, and then they're going to run. If you look in Michigan and other places, they're going to run felons. They're going to run people with sketchy histories, and it's almost like behind the scenes, you start wondering, do they have deals with Democrats that they're just making sure that we don't get decent people into office?
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough road to hoe. There's no doubt about it.
So you need to, we had a lot, so I tell you, there's a lot of good people at the RNC who tried to help us. And our strongest person we probably would have easily won this thing, had our secretary not been in a situation where her husband was terminally ill and she was at his bedside the entire time, because she was the one with all the information, all the unbelievable details of the schemes they pulled on us to make sure. So if you need to know your bylaws, you need to know, you need to have attorneys working for you. And, for us, we were never going to be in a situation where we were going to damage the RNC or the Republican brand. That's the most important thing. You need to not, and I say it's the most important thing. The most important thing is representing your voters. And it's so obvious right now to people what the Democrat Party is, really is. But when you have people that are interested in their own preservation over the getting decent candidates on the ballot, that's where you run into yeah, it's heartbreaking to me. And I look at Ben as somebody that I thought was a friend. I really did.
Yeah.
I thought he was a friend. I thought he was an ally.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I'm not somebody that's normally a loss for words.
Yeah.
At that moment, I know exactly where I was standing at the entrance to the end, and it was like I felt like he was saying to my wife, "Get out of here. We're done with you."
Well,
That's
Ben,
how
listen,
I felt.
we're almost out of time. We do appreciate you coming on and telling us the story.
Yeah, no problem.
Really
I
do.
wish you guys well.
Thank you so much.
All the best, man. Hey,
All the best.
make America great again.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it here in Connecticut.
Yeah. All
We'll
right,
be ready
guys.
for the pitfall. Take care.
God bless you. And do me a favor, send me the link for your podcast so I can I can watch it.
Absolutely.
I've actually got a lot of family in Connecticut.
Great.
And they're Republicans as well.
Oh,
great.
Fantastic.
So they're not the type of people, they'll vote, but they're not going to show up, and it's unlikely that they would get active. I just pray for you guys that you have some people that, because what you need is you need people that are going to be committed. And the main thing that I said this earlier, you have to have, they have money and a lot of money, and they get, in our situation, and we have people that are donating their time. We spend our own money that I should be using for my children's education and for my family. We wasted on all these. I mean, we went to every event, we participated in we listened to them, and the thing that I think is so upsetting to me is that they didn't allow us to represent our voters, and it's obvious looking back, they just used us to regain power for an organization that doesn't. And you guys are in the same. We don't have any. We have Republicans on the Board of Elections. That's it. Yep. And those people now know that they don't have a vote, and they're discouraged because they know that they've learned what we've learned. And I don't know if you guys are in the same situation. You just need to get people show up.
We got to have fair elections. We got to have fair elections. That's the thing. We got to have fair elections. I'm working on that.
But if the rules are written by the people that are running the elections, and they bring in a fair vote, or they run the elections in a way that you can't get your people on the state committee.
He's talking about general elections as opposed to Republican Party.
Oh, right.
Yeah, different subject.
Right.
So we
do have to close up though, because
we gotta go.
A lot of noise going on in my background now.
So listen, guys, I appreciate you. Keep up the fight, and God bless you, and all the best.
Thanks, Todd. Thank you.
Take care, man.
Bye-bye now.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Looks like he's out.
Yes, is he good? Well, that was interesting.
That was interesting.
I just want to say his wife. He's talking about his wife. His wife is well connected with like Donald Trump Jr. and Kash Patel, and she's a very, very interesting person. But it's interesting what he had to say. It took a long time to say it, but it's interesting to have him to say.
Okay, yes. Now it's just the two of us. Okay.
Okay.
So that's okay.
So what'd you think?
Yeah, that was incredibly interesting. It's very disturbing as to how we approach this in Connecticut. I appreciate how depressing that experience was for him. But I'm not one to give in to despair or frustration.
Of course not. Definitely not.
Just, if you don't do anything, it's like, all right, so we learn from that. That's the point. We learn from that. Yep. Also, this is a different moment in time.
This is a different moment in time. And so I guess the point of all that was to help people in Connecticut understand the kind of dirty tricks that we might face going forward, though. And we have to be ready for that kind of stuff. And like for instance, we had Amy Shia in here as a guest recently, last month, and her my understanding is her campaign manager, a good friend of hers, I guess, is potentially someone that's been planted by the other side to upset her campaign, and that they want to get messages across to her about that. But she's not listening. So this is the kind of thing we're facing. These are chameleons, these people, okay? And no, this is not meant to depress or discourage anybody, actually. His message was very important, but he's obviously a little down in the dumps from it. And so I'm with you, Selena. We're not here to, we're not using this to discourage anybody. We just want people to be aware of the kind of opponents that we're dealing with and the kind of things that they'll do. Yeah, and it doesn't turn us away. It doesn't depress me. It gets me more angry, actually, more ready to take it on.
I tend to dig my heels in on that one too, because it's a fight worth having. It isn't just about the Republican Party. This is about, we're talking about, the soul of our nation here. This is about who we are as people, as individuals. Are we people who stand up for what is right? We stand up for the principles that we can all agree that get us along together? Or are we selfish dickheads? You can pick. And it's like, on one side, you've got the Democrats who are all about, it's like everybody else's fault, and it's everybody else's fault here. We'll take care of you, and we'll milk all these other people that are really awful, and we'll give you a little money, and we'll take a whole lot of their money as long as you vote for us. But then on the Republican side, you've got people who are clearly just interested in enriching themselves. And I think it's been our experience that people on the right tend to be, for a couple of different reasons, and I'm still exploring that. But there are people on the left too who are just like, oh my God, what happened to my party?
Well, that's our voter base. But those are the people that are going to help turn the state red. Those are the people that we have to help them see what's going on. Their party has betrayed them. The Democratic Party was at one point a good opposition party. I didn't agree with most of their principles even back then, but they weren't so outrageous and offensive and communist and Marxist-like and controlling. I mean, isn't this really ultimately about human rights?
It is very much about human rights.
It's about parental rights.
Yes.
It's about right to healthy food to eat, These are basic things that
advantage of us, for God's sakes.
These are all things that we all grew up thinking we wouldn't have to worry about in America so much.
Silly us.
That now here we are worrying about this stuff. So the stakes are so high. And the point of all this is we need many people to come forward and be active. And and that's the theme of this whole podcast that we're doing, is to get people in Connecticut out and active and talking to other people. And then not only that, but I guess we can add to that now. So we got to vet people out. I mean, if you're thinking about running for office, we're here to have your back and help you communicate your word. Let us know. And, the people you surround yourself with in your inner circle are going to be important here. And unfortunately, you heard what Todd said. He thought Ben Proto was his friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have a candidate for Congress here in Connecticut who may have one of her childhood friends betraying her. Mm-hmm. So this is it's like a bad episode of Dynasty almost. Good Lord. I mean, so people have to
or Game of Thrones for the
like Game of Thrones without the dragons.
Yeah. That's how you define dragons.
So people in Connecticut, we have our work cut out for us. But I know we're fighters here in this state, and I know that the motivating factor for the people is the fact that our rights are being our human rights are being violated on a small scale now, but it'll be on a massive scale if we don't fight this now.
Yeah, and some people would say it's on a large scale now, depending on, especially if you're talking to
John Flynn certainly
who just want to go. They just want to not have a vaccine. They don't want to stick a needle in their kids.
Yeah,
we should have a right to do that, and that is high damn stakes there.
Or how about they just want to be notified before someone chops off their son's genitals?
Well, that shouldn't even be happening. I
can't believe that's happening. The fact that that's marching in the street stuff. We got to win these elections, okay? We got to win these elections next year. We got to do whatever it takes. We are going to continue. I am going to continue to call committee members here and try to get Ben Proto out of the committee chairmanship. Now, I've had before we go, I have some very interesting conversations with some of the committee members. I'm not going to name any of them by name because we're trying to win this thing. And it's just best that we don't name names right now. We may name names later. But right now, we're going to keep the names out of it. We've talked to some committee members that have basically told me, I've talked to them directly on the telephone. We have 74 in Connecticut that are going to vote on Ben Proto or against Ben Proto on Tuesday, the 24th of June. And I've got 3 votes. I know that so far out of 6 that I've talked to. 3. But the 3 that turned me down, basically 2 of them said that they just made a promise to Ben and they don't want to break their word.
Right. Yeah. What's that loyalty worth? You know, if that loyalty is going against the people of Connecticut, how great is that loyalty? Right. What does that even mean?
Right. So loyalty, first 2 points, my 2 counters to that are, you made a promise, but that was before you even had it with somebody running against them. Things have changed. That mitigates the promise, number one. Number two,
how do you promise before you even have somebody running?
Right. And what's right? And what is your more important? Keeping your little promise? Or, again, like you just said, the future of the state of Connecticut is what we're talking about here. The future of the people's rights. That's a little more important than some, good old boy promise. Okay. Now I'm all about keeping promises. I try to make sure that if I make a promise to somebody that I keep it too. So I get that. But there's also exceptions to the rule. And there's another thing called priorities.
Yep.
And so a couple of them were I talked to one in particular who was really a nice guy. And he really seemed to have MAGA at heart, actually, too. But what threw me was how could I put this? We talked a little bit about the rhino, about the people in the Republican Party that are sort of stuck in the establishment and they're not really MAGA and they're kind of working against us, even though they're pretending, like almost wolf in sheep's clothing type of thing, the rhino, right? We've talked about that on the show. This particular delegate didn't deny look like UFOs, like, oh, well, there's probably a couple out there that are like that, but we don't have no idea who they are, and we'll never know. And I mean, he's either completely naive or he's just protecting Ben.
Can see who these people are? I'm sorry, that is willful blindness.
That is willful blindness. If the best I could give him is just blindness. But I talked to the man for 45 minutes, and he was very good. I actually really liked him. Like some of the things he was saying that we should be doing. I just wrote some things down. He had good advice for our movement and everything. And at the same time, he's like, but don't touch Ben. He's great. I'm like, dude, really? He played. Oh, another thing, another delegate basically said, and I talked to you this before the show, but I'm going to say it here. He basically said, well, we're doing the best we can here at the state level for the RNs. We're doing everything we can for the towns just aren't doing anything. It's their fault. Right. That's like that's like the manager of a restaurant failing and then saying over and over again and saying, well, my waitresses suck. Okay. It's on you. You don't blame the towns. If the towns are failing, doesn't that come back to the state in terms of the Republican Party?
Some leadership.
How about some leadership? Jeez, oh man. So he was really good talking to me. He's trying to convince me not to mess with Ben, that Ben's a great guy, and I should really, it's not his fault. Look, I'm not blaming Ben for all the problems. Ben's not blamed for all the problems, but he's part of the problem. He certainly isn't part of the solution. So we're going to do everything we can to get him out.
We can say he's definitely not part of the solution, and the evidence supports that, or we wouldn't have
overwhelmingly
a majority of Democrats.
Right. We got to get him out. We wouldn't have maybe 30 or 40 decent Republican town committees out of 160. We should have 169 of them, not 100. Not. So it's his poor performance. We're going to do everything we can to get him out. If we can't get him out this time around, because we are late in the ball game, things on Tuesday. If we can't get him out, then if you are a committee member and you vote if you vote for Ben Proto, then you can be sure that the people of Connecticut are going to be at the town meetings in your town to make sure you're not part of the committee next time around. That's all. Because this good old boy stuff's got to go.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Anyway, what else is on your mind?
The last thing before I have to go, because I have to go soon, is that things are going to get noisy here soon. I'm in an undisclosed location.
I got more. Secret. I got more committee members to call too. So
yeah, you got things to do. So the one thing I would say is people talk about, why don't you just ditch the party and start a new one? And I get the sentiment. On the other hand, the party exists. It exists for a reason. It has a history, and it formed, the Republican Party started to get rid of slavery. So there is a base. There are good people in the party. There's plenty of good people in the party. Talk to some of them.
Especially on the grassroots.
Many of them.
Yeah.
You know, I've been going to the Conservative Women's Forum, and the women there are like, some of them are incredibly frustrated over what's been going on.
Yeah.
And if you can rectify and save, it takes a very long time to build our organizations and our structures. If we can save it instead of tearing it all down, that would be great. That will save us time, because building this stuff up takes time and work. And if we don't figure out what the problems are here, then we don't get, if you build a new one, you're just going to build the same problems in.
You're right.
So if nothing else, we learn what the problems are.
That's correct.
Fix them though. That would
right. But also, from a practical standpoint too, part of this, you know, Donald Trump did nationally took a broken Republican Party, united it and won elections, and now the Republican Party has literally stolen the working class people, the coalition of regular middle class people, away from the Democratic Party, and that's what we're really trying to do here in Connecticut. And having the name of the Republican Party, which is what has a great history. We're the ones that helped free the slaves. We're the ones that actually fought for the rights of the common folks more. The Democrats have tried to steal that mantra. As Democrats who formed the Ku Klux Klan in the South, you know, these guys are not good people. But the bottom line is, if we try to go to a third party, which, you know, ideally a third party could be built in a way that we all would love the most. That would be a good thing. But we can't lose the momentum that Donald Trump has created in this last election for the Republican Party in Connecticut by it's just going to confuse too many MAGA voters. There's probably 1.5 million MAGA willing voters, whether they're registered Democrats, Republicans, or independents.
Yeah.
We know Connecticut has a huge independent population, about 1.9 million, I think you said. That's huge. That's a majority. So in Connecticut, the majority of the people are not even registered as a Democrat or a Republican.
Exactly.
We keep that in mind. But there are a lot of rank and file Republicans, and a lot of the independents have that in mind. So we don't want to resell from scratch what Donald Trump has already started for us, the MAGA movement, which is part of the Republican Party. So that dovetails what we're trying to do here in Connecticut. It really is a MAGA movement. You know, make America great again. Make Connecticut great again. Doge the departments of Connecticut to make sure that we're not being defrauded, which we know we are. We just don't have proof of it yet. And you know, another thing that bothers me, we don't have one single, I think this is true. We don't have one single law enforcement officer official elected in Connecticut now, do we?
No.
That's a disgrace.
Yeah. Well, something to think about for
next time around.
Yeah, next time around. Yes, sir.
Well, I want to thank our guest, Todd, for coming on. Todd Hecht was wonderful. He told an interesting story. Selena, once again, it's been great having you. We're going to do this again Tuesday, and we have more interesting guests coming up. We have, if we can solidify, I think we have a couple of registers of voters coming on to talk. Terrific. So the guests are going to get more interesting as we go along.
We had another guest we were supposed to have on today, but she had a family issue, so we're bumping that back. We'll get back with her later.
They're lining up to be on the show.
Yeah, we've got some good guests coming up.
Yes.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Good night, everybody. God bless America. God bless Connecticut. Take care.